Hello everyone and welcome to the Oliveboard platform. My name is Antara Bhuyan and we have started the NCERT series. We are starting with class 6th and eventually we will move to higher classes like 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. The name of the textbook is Curiosity. Before beginning with the session, if you have not watched chapter number 1, 2 and 3 and 4, then you can go ahead and refer to the playlist on the channel. Today we are going to begin with chapter number 5, which is measurement of length and motion. Eventually you will see that there are chapters which have more in-depth, for example, thinkings and more in-depth knowledge in this particular textbook itself. So let us get started with what is measurement and how do we measure common things in our day-to-day life. Many of the times when a dress gets say fit for us and we want to little bit increase its size so that we are more comfortable in that dress, we go to the tailor and there is no requirement of measurements. We just say do angul or dui angli in case of Assamese language, and whatever language you are using, there will be slight difference, but the meaning remains the same. That say if 2 finger distance or 4 finger distance, like that. Also, if you will see in terms of a higher unit, you will see that there are some vendors who are not using a measuring tape and they simply stretch their arms and they calculate whether a cloth is 1 meter or 2 meter, like that. So how does it actually happens? What sense does it makes in our everyday life if different person have different length of their fingers, then how can we have a single standard unit? So solving all of these, we have our today's chapter, which will give us with the units which not only works in our local cities or say towns or villages, but also works even outside the country and say our international standard units of measurements. So if you look into this child who is just 11-year-old in the textbook, then she says that okay, her dress is not appropriate. It is getting too much fit as of now and she wants to get a new dress. So when her mother takes her out and they go to the shopkeeper, then what they do is they order a cloth which is say 2 meters. Now, will the shopkeeper give it just like, okay, this much is 2 meter and this is your piece? Or will he be sure that how much is that particular, what is it? Length. So the shopkeeper uses a rigid metal measuring rod for a precise 2 meter cut of cloth. If you have ever purchased cloth from the store, then you will know it. The tailor, he uses a flexible measuring tape to measure Deepa's body. So why for measuring the same cloth and for the uniform, 2 different tapes are being used? One was a steel and it was made of rigid steel, and the flexibility component of the scale is not there. However, for measuring the body, there has to be flexibility in the measuring tape so that the exact numbers can be noted. Meanwhile, her mother adds a traditional instruction: increase the length by angul, angula, or she says that char angula. Previously, say even now maybe in some regions, when we stitch a new dress, we always say that leave some margin, and how much that margin is, that can be duyangli, saryangli margin, or that can be in say standard Hindi char angula or 4 finger margin. A meter rod, a tape, and 4 fingers. All these are different units, right? All these are different ways of measurement. So how do we club them together? Now the children go ahead and out of curiosity, Deepa and all her friends, they starts measuring the lengths using their arms. Say for example, there was a table in the classroom and they started measuring like this, 1, 2, 3, and they observed that all of the measurements that they had collected were different, but the size of the table was the same. So what to do? The meaning of this is that the size of the hands are different, and that is why the size of their notes or their answers were also different. So they agreed to measure the same table and record their results, and they had found that some people got it as 13 handspans and some people got it as 14 handspans. So that is not a standard, right? Because different hands, that means different sizes will be there. As a result of which we need something which is more standard. A handspan of different persons from different nations will also be different. So what to do for solutions? There is a universal language of measurement. Just like in different language, the angula itself is different. So how will people identify? So people will identify with the help of the SI units. What are these? The International System of Units. Something which is not just used in our country, but in all the countries across the world, and it is universally accepted. That is the International System of Units. And the SI unit for measuring the length is your meter. For example, if there is a scale, then we can find out how many meter long that particular scale is. For example, if we look at the cloth say shop or the shopkeeper's measuring tape, if they are specifically dealing with cloth, we will find that that measuring tape can be of 1 meter long. Now, the right scale which can be used for different purposes is different. If we want to measure, say, smaller units, then we will need a centimeter scale, or in any standard scale, actually, there are small markings to denote further breakdowns of the meter. Say for example, in this scale, there will be markings in all standard scales if we look at them closely. If this is 1 and if this is 2 centimeter, if this is 3 centimeter, then what we have in between them are the millimeters. So there can be millimeter, which is the smaller one out of these three. Then there can be the centimeter, which can be used, and 1 centimeter is equal to 10 millimeter. And then there is the meter, and 1 meter is equal to 100 centimeters. And for kilometer, we measure longer distance in terms of kilometer. 1 kilometer is equals to 1000 meter. If we travel from one city to another, or if we do a long distance travel, we will always see that there are landmark stones. These landmark stones tells us that how many kilometers are left to reach our destination. Now see, mastery of measurement using the tool correctly. If we look into the placements, place the scale in direct contact with the object parallel to the length being measured. If we will place a scale incorrectly, not in straight format or not in 90° with the sides, then we will not get the correct measurement. We always need to place the scale in a parallel manner and in direct contact with the object that we want to measure. Next, whenever we are taking a note of what is the measurement, we always have to avoid all sorts of errors, as a result of which we need to see the eye position should be there directly above the marking. If it is not directly above the marking, then probably our results will be wrong. Next, what to do if there are some broken ends? See, for example, if the 0 mark is unclear, or if the 0 mark is broken because the sides often break down, right? In that case, we need not go ahead and waste it. Okay, we do not have a measuring scale, so we cannot measure. But we have better options. What to do? We can measure from 1 instead of from 0, or from whatever marking that is available, we can start our measurement. And once we get that measurement, then we can subtract the initial measurement. Say for example, in this case, we started from 1 and then the measurement which we got was 10.4. But since we started from 1, so we need to subtract 1 from this 10.4. And if the 1 is also destructed, or if the 1 is also not there, we are measuring from 2, in that case we have to minus that 2 and we will get the accurate readings. Now let us come to another experiment. If for example this helps even for adults and even for any kind of meetups. Say for example we have to reach one particular place from our different locations. Now different locations means the distance will be different. So what we do, we use the Google Maps. If we want to have multi-stops in our travel or in our destination, then we always make a mix and match and see which mix and match will give us the shortest length. So similarly, if say a group of friends were discussing about the distance and they were planning the trip to the nearby garden, then some of them say that the garden is closer and some of them say that the school is closer and some of them say that it is equal distance. So if somebody has to come from their house, and then they will be able to identify that okay, if by measuring that whether the garden is closer or whether the school is closer. If say for example there is a picnic happening at the school and this child wants to make a decision whether the child wants to go to the school and from school to the garden or wants to go directly to the garden, then you see the decision is very easy. Going to the school and then to the garden will be a longer route. However, reaching the garden directly will be a shorter route. The same can actually be used in the day-to-day life as well. The answer, everyone is correct from their own perspective. Some people may be closer to the gardens. For some people, the school can be closer to their house. It all depends upon the reference point, that is from where they are starting. If this is the reference point, then from this reference point, of course, we can see that the garden is nearer. From this reference point also the garden is nearer. However, if we talk about the point B, then from point B the school is nearer. So based on the reference point, the distance can change. The reference point in action, whenever we are doing a journey, we are traveling to a place, we will always see this kind of kilometer stones on the side of the road. Now, what are these kilometer stones? These kilometer stones indicate how far a place is. Say, for example, from here, if we start from here to the point when a person will reach Delhi, there is 70 kilometer. Then we see that there is 60 kilometer. From here, from this point, it is 50 kilometer. From this point, it is 30 kilometer. And if somebody reaches to a very near reference point, then only 0 kilometer is left. Now, having talked about the reference point, we can move to our next topic, which is about motion in the same chapter. Now, talking about motion, a change in position relative to a point over the time period. Now see, Padma's position is changing with respect to the reference point Delhi as time passes. If she is moving from 70 kilometer to 60 kilometer to 50 kilometer, that means she is moving nearer to Delhi. She is going to Delhi. An object is in motion if its position changes with respect to reference point with time. An object or a person or anything that is moving, if Padma is moving from 70 kilometer near to Delhi, in that case she is also in motion. So if an object is in motion, that means the reference point is changing with time. What about rest? An object is at rest if its position does not change with respect to a reference point. That means an object should be there at that position itself. If we look into some passengers who are traveling in this bus, relative to her, the bus or the reference point, they are at rest because they are sitting inside the bus. Inside the bus, they are not moving. So if we are considering the bus as the reference point, with respect to the reference point, the person is not moving. All these people are not moving with respect to the bus. But relative to a building outside the bus, if we consider this building, then slowly the bus will move forward and then they will leave that point. That means relative to that building, these people, they are moving. So the conclusion is motion is always relative to a chosen reference point. In this case, with reference to the bus, people are not moving. With reference to the building, people are moving because the bus itself is in motion. Now, a framework for understanding the types of motion. If we are doing same everyday morning march past, or if we are walking in a straight line, then this motion in a straight line is known as a linear motion. For example, a car which is moving in the city roads normally is, say, the movement in a straight line. What about circular motion? When we are doing this merry-go-round, in this case, what happens? It is a circular motion. What about oscillatory motion? When we are swinging to and fro, this is known as oscillatory motion. So a swing is an example of oscillatory motion. So as of now, we know about the linear motion, the circular motion, and the oscillatory motion. Now, if we look into some children's playing in the park and identify what kind of motion it is. If a children is coming down a slide, then you can see the child is coming down in a straight line, so it is a linear motion. This you can see is an example of circular motion. This one is again going to and fro, so it is the example of oscillatory motion. We can see going up and down in this one is also the example of oscillation. Let us move ahead and see the power of some questions. Our journey started with a simple question about a uniform, that the uniform is getting too fit and she wants to increase it. And from there we have moved into SI unit or to standard units. Then we have talked about reference point and that movements happens with respect to the reference points. And there are different tools which are used for measuring, say for example, meter. And also we have different ways to define motion and to classify motion as well. For example, we have studied linear motion, circular motion, etc. So with this, we have come to an end of our chapter number 5, which is measurement of length and motion. In the next session, we will study materials around us. So please consider subscribing to the channel. That's all for this particular class. Thank you everyone. Take care. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.